Hey Christian, how are you doing?
Hi, Pallavi. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well as well, thank you very much. And a very warm welcome to you at the Selenium Community Live event. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation for it. So, folks, everyone, we have Christian Bromann with us. He is the creator of WebdriverIO, one of the most widely used WebDriver project on JavaScript. And he is the lead at Stencils and a project council member at the OpenJS Foundation. So Christian will be talking to us about AI automation and agent AI. So over to you, Christian. Thank you.
Thank, thank you, Pallavi. And hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. Today, I want to speak a little bit about my vision on how AI agent and agentic workflows work and are shaping the testing industry. There's a lot to say, and most all of it is going to be my prediction and my opinion. And obviously, I would love for you all to come find me and challenge them because they might be not right, and I would love to hear your opinion about it. My name is Christian. I'm a software engineer at OutSystems right now, leading the development of the Stencil.js project, which is a web component compiler that helps you to build large-scale design systems. I'm also leading the development of the WebdriverIO project, which is a next-generation Node.js automation framework. It allows you to write automation tests for mobile, for web, for the browser, for even desktop TVs, and whatever can be automated. In the next 30 minutes or so, I wanted to do a little recap about what we understand about AI agent and agentic workflows, provide some examples where current startups are heading and where the industry are going. Then I want to show you a real-world example of how you could integrate AI into your current testing workflows in a, I find, usable way. And then I want to close up with a crazy idea of mine that I think will help improve AI browser automation in this space. Let's get going. So I think the last 2 years, were pretty wild, right? The race of AI, starting all with a little experiment called ChatGPT that was, a test of how we can use LLM in production, has been one of the fastest growing products in the world. Back in the days, a large language model, basically is just a neural network that predicts the most likely outcome based on your provided prompt or input, right? And that's how it all started, implemented in an application like ChatGPT. But then, as OpenAI made the large language model behind it accessible to developers, they started to build more complex workflows with it. They started to orchestrate LLM calls in different ways, using routers, using parallel calls, and other things that allowed us to do much more complex application. We then entered the time of agents. Apparently, 2025 is the year of agents, and so far, half of the year's over. I can definitely agree that this year it has been all about agents in the space, and they are LLMs with reasoning capabilities that allow to kind of autonomously automate an environment that can be a browser, that can be our IDE, if you use cursor, things like that. And so we are heading towards more interesting use cases and seeing agents taking over various of workflows that we find in our day-to-day use. But what makes something agentic, right? What does it mean when someone says I built an agentic application? Something to worth pointing out is that an agentic system usually contains a non-deterministic task and deterministic task. A non-deterministic task usually is the interaction with an LLM, which is almost always a non-deterministic operation. And then there are some deterministic tasks within them where you can execute code that mostly behave deterministic. And that becomes important when we look into how we can apply AI into actual applications. So we have, on the one side, we have LLM augmented workflows, where you, for instance, use an LLM to analyze a certain data set, and then maybe have a human in the loop, and then use the information that the LLM created to send it to a further processing tool. On the other side, we have a complete agentic workflow where an agent with reasoning capabilities gets a task and is able to completely autonomously operate in a foreign environment. An example for that is, for instance, if you open v0.dev, you can, vibe code your next React application, versus on the other side, text processing, things like that are usually use cases for LLM augmented workflows. Now, when it's important to understand the notions between both of them, where there's LLM augmented workflows are more deterministic, but they provide more predictable outputs, but they have limited autonomy, and they are more reliable for narrower tasks that have a small scope. Where agentic workflows are less deterministic and help with solving solving problems in an autonomous way, and they can take on more complex tasks in a more unpredictable environment. And so these both use cases of workflows, we see more and more companies now adopting them in real-world products. I went ahead and just explored the space of QA automation companies that build products on top of AI. I found QA Wolf, which is an interesting product that allows you to basically record and playback through your application. And at the end of the day, you get a test script, a playwright script that you can use to put into your CI pipeline. The interesting part about QA Wolf is that they use both workflows, an LLM augmented workflow and an agentic workflow, where the agentic workflow helps you to generate your test code based on your mouse interaction and keyboard interaction, but they also allow you to kind of talk with the browser or with the platform when you're clicking through your application, and say things like add some assertions here and do something here, to very fine-grained control how the agent has to or should create your test. Then I went and explore Momentic.ai, which is a YC Combinator company from last year that built an agent that allows you to just generate the whole automation workflow with a single prompt. So you basically tell Momentic AI what you want to do, like saying things like click on this button, now verify that something is visible, and an agent will automate a browser on behalf of you. So making the test authoring process very easy. But while the Momentic approach is more like closed source, there are open source versions of browser automation that we see in this space. One is, for instance, BrowserIO that now started to be its own company that allows you to use an API to automate browsers in the cloud. And here the same, you give BrowserIO a task, for instance, order things like groceries on this website, and the agent goes ahead and tries to execute your prompt on your behalf. And just yesterday, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, the company behind the browser-based company announced a Series B and a new product called WebdriverIO, which is essentially like a ChatGPT with a browser capability. So you can control the browser, and the agent runs it for you, and you can extract data or use it to generate your test as well. Maybe you know a project called Alumnium, which is a project by Alex, who maintains the Selenium Ruby bindings, and he tried to use that idea to embed it into Selenium itself. So you can use Alumnium to write Selenium tests and have commands like do or check to integrate AI into your existing automation tests today. And with all this going on, a lot of people feel like concerned, they feel afraid that maybe AI will take over testing. So what's behind that? My honest opinion is I feel like we are not quite there yet, if we ever get there. I feel like there's a lot of AI platforms out there that help you to build and author tests using AI, but many of them are kind of like bad. They are very bad. They give you bad tests, and they give you tests that are not valuable at all. So here's one example that I found where I had a platform that would generate me tests in Playwright, and their test didn't even have a single assertion in it. So much to say that I think people still trying things out, and I feel like AI is currently here to help us doing our current work, but it's definitely far away from replacing us and our jobs. So where I do see AI helping us is like enhancing us with the things that we do already today. And if we look at the testing pyramid, I feel like it will kind of reshape a little bit based on the capabilities that AI provides us. For example, if developers end up writing more code using AI, I feel like the importance of unit tests will decrease slowly, because there's, in my point of view, not real value in writing unit tests for code that has been created by AI. And also, I don't think there's any value generating unit tests by AI for code that is generated by AI. At the end of the day, in my personal opinion, I love to write unit tests to just validate the assumptions that I have about my own code. But if I never like to write unit tests for other codes, only if I want to understand what it does. So if you write unit tests, it's only valuable if you do it yourself to understand more about the code and validate that it does what you're supposed to, what you think it should do. But writing AI generating unit tests for AI generated code, in my opinion, doesn't make any sense. However, I feel like integration tests and end-to-end tests will become more important. I think you probably have heard about Kenzie Dodd's analogy or enhancement to the testing pyramid, which is called the testing trophy, which puts more emphasis in that part of the space, where integration tests, for instance, as in form of a component test, becomes more and more important, because we can very deterministically test a broad range of things with AI help. So AI will continuously help us to write those type of tests, but they will not take over writing these for us. And then at the end of the day, I think there will be maybe new categories of testing that are more AI-driven exploratory testing. Things like monkey tests can be replaced by AI agent that take our application and just try to break it on behalf of our QA team, for instance. So it will be interesting to see how this will end up developing, and what will stick and what not. But I definitely don't think that anyone will steal our jobs just yet. Let me give you a real-world example of how you can integrate AI now in a project today. I use WebdriverIO, obviously, for that example, but the idea and concept behind it can be applied with any framework you have. So let me switch my screen to my IDE. So I'm going to open my cursor IDE. So this was a part of my workflow, part of a workshop that I gave at Selenium conference, where I asked the participants to create a service that allows you to validate assumptions about the state of the application with a single command using AI. So you can see a test how it could look like this. You have a browser that goes to a to-do MVC application. For simplicity reasons, very basic application. Then we enter 3 to-dos, and then instead of writing a bunch of assertions to validate the state of the application, we just have a single prompt that does this all for us. Kind of like a visual test, but just using AI. And you can see here, if I run this test, it will pass. And if I Let me see. It was working. Oh, there we go. My browser pops up and validates, and there we go. And so now, just to validate that it also can fail, I say to do number 4, and I run this test again. By the way, if you're curious about how I run these tests in my IDE, the WebdriverIO project recently released a VS Code plugin that allows you to run WebdriverIO tests right straight off your IDE. So that was just released a couple of days ago. So go ahead, if you use VS Code, Cursor, or any VS Code like IDEs, go ahead and install the extension that makes it much easier to run the test. But you can see here, the AI now says that the state shows that there are 4 to-do items. So it can very reliably detect how many to-dos it's there. And interestingly, if I do something like this, let's say I want to put milk, butter, and I don't know what else is grocery store, like milk, butter, and yogurt. And then I can say, validate that I have 3 to-do items shown on the page that are all grocery items. According to logic, this should now pass because milk, butter, and yogurt are usual common grocery items. And let's see if that does. Okay, but now let's sneak in, let's say, a PlayStation into our shopping list. Let's say if that goes through. Running the test again. And you can see that my test is failing because PlayStation is not a grocery item. So you can see here that this allows us to do a much more enhanced type of assertion by using AI. And the way this works is I've implemented a service, which is WebdriverIO plugin that uses the OpenAI SDK to essentially query the state of the application and reason about invoking a prompt on it. The way it works is essentially I execute a script that captures or gets me the state of the application, which right now basically is the accessibility tree and some additional information about properties of the individual elements. This can be you can vary that. Just remember that whatever you provide as a state to the LLM is what the AI knows about your application. So if you want to test for something specific that is not part of your state, your AI will not be able to reason about it properly. But if it comes to in terms of an accessibility tree, we can very much validate about elements, about their state, about the properties, and can ask a whole lot about the application in general. And then I pass in the state of the application into a prompt where I say, you're a testing expert, please validate the given statement that you get, which is the prompt by the user or by the test, and then return me a result, whether or not that prompt is true or false, and provide a hint which allows us to basically enhance our error that we get. And that's pretty much all. You can find out how you can apply this to Python, to Java. You can integrate these AI primitives into your framework and basically enhance your assertion with this capability. And if you're interested in that, you can, let me switch back to my slides. You can open the workshop project on GitHub and just look to the code. Open github.com/WebdriverIO/workshop. And this part is part of chapter 13. So you can find all the code there. You can test and play around with it to see how it works. Moving forward, something that I also tried is building my own browser agent, something like you see with BrowserIO or Selenium, basically building an interface that allows me to act on a browser and verify things in the browser. And something that I realized implementing that is that it kind of became a challenge to build, to get like comfort out of writing tests like this, at the same time keeping like reliability within my test. So if I keep my prompts very short, like go to this website or add 3 to-dos, then the agent is usually able and capable to figure out what it needs to do, to find the element and to enter these things into the browser. However, if my prompts getting more vague or longer, then an agent might become less reliable. And then I ended up writing more of these prompts to make sure that I give the browser just really small tasks that it can definitely figure out to do. But then I end up writing much more code and much more like automation code that than I used to by just using the WebdriverIO interface, for instance, to directly clicking on an element. So there's like a compromise to make, or like a balance to find between being like having it easy to write tests like this versus keeping the test as reliable as possible. The way you could build such a browser agent is as follows. You have, like in this case, in my example, you have a client that has a run or a verify command. The run command implements a tool calling agent using one of these AI SDKs. My favorite one is, for instance, built by LangChain, which provide SDKs for Python and JavaScript. So you can use them to build a tool calling agent, which essentially is an agent that has access to various of tools. And these tools, you can think about them as single actions in the browser, like finding an element or executing a click on an element or getting the text of an element. So these tools have access to the WebdriverIO instance and can access the browser through the WebdriverIO interface. And then whatever happens in the browser will be stored in something like a state observer. And in order to make sure that the agent knows and understood what it did and has done before, we also keep a little memory of what the agent did in the agent history. So the way it would work is you give the agent a prompt to do something. It would use the WebdriverIO interface to interact with the browser and verify whether or not it has executed that step correctly by looking into the browser state and to the agent history to understand, hey, I've done everything that the user wanted to me. I can, pass my step, or I can just say, okay, I didn't do what I supposed to do. I just rerun the whole process again. On the other side, you have a verify command, which basically is just there to verify if something on the page is as you expect. Basically verifying that you have 3 to-dos on the application. And that one is a little bit different because here we don't need to call any tools. We just need to have a basic LLM that accesses the application state and then verifies based on the prompt that you give it. And then it returns true or false whether or not the statement or the prompt that you gave it them is correct. And that's how you can build basically your own browser agent. But again, there's this trade-off you have to make between convenience of having it easier to write tests versus accuracy. And it's sometimes very hard to strike because the most annoying thing in the world is having flaky tests. And so it's hard to justify to use AI to generate tests or to make test authoring easier when it comes to losing accuracy through it. Now, what does the future look like if we move beyond deterministic testing? I think the future is going to be exciting because us as people who write automation tests, I think we will get to learn new tools that make our lives easier, that make our test authoring process easier, as well as allow us to just test more things with the tools that we have. Something that really excites me is, for instance, the model context protocol. I think you all have heard about MCP at some stage and know what it is. It allows us essentially to connect our LLMs with more environments around us to interact with it. And I think that's a phenomenal idea because it can bridge an LLM and give it more context to do more things in a more reliable way. Something that I would be interested in is seeing a model context protocol server for web components. As you know, I'm maintaining the Stencil project, which is a web component compiler. And talking about browser automation and using AI to automate a browser, right now this can be very challenging because the LLM basically has to understand the DOM and how the website is being projected in the browser. So essentially, all the browser use and browser automation tools that you find on the internet right now, they mostly use the accessibility tree to reason about the state of the application. But imagine you have a large application that contains a lot of elements, then you will feed the LLM a lot of information, and that just increases the likelihood that it gets things wrong. But we all know that we compose our application through various of components. Imagine like a login component. And every of these components have certain capabilities that it exposes to the websites. For instance, the login component usually comes with a login method that allows the user to log into the platform. So now imagine your login component can expose itself to an MCP server. Now, when you have a tool that automates your browser, now when it has access to all these components that expose certain functionality, reasoning about an application becomes much easier because there's much more semantic in the information that we can give an LLM. So for instance here, if we render this login component on the website, it can expose its functionality, which is logging the user in, to an MCP server. And so instead of looking into the DOM nodes and into the JavaScript that is being run, the MCP server or the LLM only has to look into the components that are rendered on the page and what they expose as functionality. I think that can make browser automation much more reliable and can help us to make the process of automating browsers using AI much easier. So I haven't had the time yet to build that myself, but I would love. I hope that this will be, someone will build this and will make our browser automation using LLM easier in the future. So with that said, thanks so much to the Selenium community for having me. I'm opening up for questions if anyone has some. Thank you. I think you're muted, Pallavi.
Hey, Christian, thank you so much. That was a very insightful and a very crisp introduction to this world, and quite insightful, very interesting for me especially. So we have some questions, so we will take them up first. So hey, Jason, how are you doing? We see you are here. So we have Jason Arbon in the audience. So he's saying open source AI for Selenium. He's giving us some link, okay? And AI with MCP to drive web browsers. Okay, great. So future does look like that we will be having various MCP available for different tools out there. We did have a talk at the conference by NG where she spoke about MCP Selenium, and I believe Playwright also has it out. So how do you see the future, Christian, when you spoke about this component testing and AI only building the application, then AI only testing the application? Where do you see the role of a tester integrated in here? How do you see that?
Yeah, I think like developers use more AI to build applications. I think we as testers will use more AI to generate test code and to build integration tests. Again, I don't think it makes sense to unit test AI generated code, but I think it's definitely worthwhile to enhance the amount of integration tests and end-to-end tests to verify that the AI generated code works from end to end, because often the AI doesn't understand the context of why we built a certain feature and the way we did. So it's, integration tests and end-to-end tests will become more important. And I think I will urge would urge anyone to figure out or find out how AI can help them and help you to be more efficient in writing tests and coming up with solutions to problems that you have in your today's world.
Okay, that's interesting. If we have any questions, please feel free to post them. Christian, I have a question on how much time have you like done any study where you have seen that if we use all those various tools, how much time does it take for the test to execute versus we go directly? Because introducing AI component where it would be searching for those elements and making sense of your prompts will delay. That looks like it.
Yeah, so what I've seen exploring the tools, it has been that they are extremely slow. One of these, a lot of these browser agents that are exposed as a platform, as a service, they make your test very slow. I tried Momentic, for instance, and the sample login workflow would take, I think, about 13 or 14 seconds to run, which is, if you run it in WebdriverIO or other frameworks, it's like within 1 or 2 seconds, it can validate
Okay.
whether it can log in or not. So using browser agents to essentially like run your tests is, in my opinion, a bad idea, and it will remain a bad idea because I don't think this it will speed up anytime soon. Even the fast models that you can use, they will still be too slow, and it doesn't make sense to always re-reason about how to approach certain tests. There are more advanced applications where you would generate and author a certain workflow with an agent, and the agent would store your what it did as form of like a test code, like a WebdriverIO script or something like that.
Okay.
And so the second time you run your test will be like as fast as a normal automated test. And I think the golden the golden nugget is within having an agent just observing what we are building and basically auto-generating the test on what the developer while the developer is building. I think could be the only valuable way to have a test ready as soon as you finish developing the feature. But I haven't seen a good platform or provide or like service yet that does that reliably.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. I had another question. Do you think that tools and skill sets like behavior-driven development, where we have a common language, where we use what we use to speak and talk to stakeholders, will those skills become more important to have as we are developing applications? Because the prompts which I saw, which you gave in your scripts, uh, do uh, you know does have a link to how a BDD interface would have looked like, and the underlying the AI would then do the job, and it's on the tool underlying AI tool which you have used. So do you think it would help develop more domain specific languages which the different stakeholders are talking to each other, and it's the job of then the underlying component to figure it out?
Yeah, that's a great observation. I totally agree that everyone who has been using BDD tools in the past and knows the struggle about finding the or wording a certain action in a way that someone will understand it. I think these people are great prompt engineers because they just understand
Mhm.
how a prompt has to be written in a way that makes sense. And if your stakeholders understand it, then AI will likely understand it as well. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'll just quickly ask you last two questions, if that's okay. I see from your presentation that there are two aspects to AI and automation. One, I mean, for testers, one is the set of tools which the exploratory testers can use to do their work in a much more where the underlying code can get also generated, and next time when they explore that workflow, it becomes easier, or they can just simply run it rather than doing it all manually. And the another aspect is for automation engineers to build that framework which takes help of AI. Are there any drawbacks to, or are there any any pointers you can give to these two different set of people for their work, and is there any drawback which they should be wary of so that they don't rely too much on AI and stop thinking altogether about what they are doing?
Yeah, I would recommend not to rely on a service that gives you agents to solve your automation needs. I think while they're working hard on, making this experience great, I think we are not there yet. All the tools that I have tested definitely have not been, did not provide like a great experience, to be honest. So I would recommend to use a high AI enhanced tooling, things like Cursor, that help you to generate your automation code. I can think, scenarios where you just enter all the information that you have about your test scenario and have the LLM just build your framework code for you, and then you just tweak it and make it work correctly. I think that's the best approach right now. Again, there's a lot of services out there that ask for your money but just don't really deliver on the promises that they make, and you all have to continue watching the space and see what these people are building, and and then see for yourself. Maybe at some point we will have a service that has a good experience, provides a good experience, but so far I would not just rely on a service that is out there just yet.
Okay, that's great. So we do now have a WebdriverIO plugin with Visual Studio. So thank you for letting us know that. I think that would be a great help for people who use that interface to code. Are there any links which you would like to share with the community, Christian, for to explore this further? You
Yeah,
did mention.
the code that I've shown in this talk, you can find it on github.com/webdriverio/workshop. I can
Okay,
put it in the chat in a second. Um,
sure.
Other than that, join the WebdriverIO community on Discord. I think something amazing about the WebdriverIO community is that everyone can get involved, and we pay out people that contribute to WebdriverIO. So someone who, like, I wasn't the person who created the VS Code extension. It was someone else who joined the community, and we were happy to pay them out for the work that they did. And we're looking forward to meet people that are interested, contributing to open source, and joining the WebdriverIO community.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's very noble as an open source project, and that's a great practice, Christian. I really think that more people should take this example of WebdriverIO, and they have this model, because open source projects, as far as I think, the code is open, but the people who are working for them, they should be paid for the work they're doing. They're not free. The software is free. The people work is not for free. I hope that
That's right.
that mindset builds up. So sure, what I would do, Christian, is we will share the links here in the chat uh, for the WebdriverIO Discord community, and the workshop link from the GitHub project which you have shared. I'll do that here. So are there any closing thoughts for the community, Christian?
I would just recommend to anyone to stay close to all the developments that happen in the AI space. I think it's very important for everyone to try things out and find out how AI can help you be more efficient in the work that you're doing, and not be afraid of it. I think that's the thought that I would last.
That's a great thought. And with that thought, thank you so much, Christian. Thank you for your time today and
Thank
for
you
this
all.
insightful talk. Thank you, everyone who joined the event. The recording and the blog about it will be available shortly. Thank you very much. Bye,
Have a
Christian.
wonderful day.
Have a good. Bye.